we're not here to just, live on nothing and always be, withholding things from ourselves when you can make it work and, maybe give up on something else.
Get your water and keep some wine. I should have had some wine.
With exposure, execution, and consistency, there is nothing you can't do. Just keep planting.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning back into another episode on the Responsible Homegirl Podcast. I am Kiani, the Responsible Homegirl, and this is a space that I have created so young adults can become financially responsible and wealth conscious. So today I have one of my very, very, very close personal finance content creators, Julia, on the podcast today. And like I always tell y'all are always hearing different money tips and money advice and different things from my mouth. But in this season, I really wanted to invite some of my personal finance content creator friends to come on the podcast so you could hear another voice, because we are all sharing similar messages, but we're just doing it in a different way. So welcome to the podcast, Julia. Thank you so much for being on.
Hi, Tony. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So before we get started, I always ask every single one of my guests, can you tell my community an irresponsible financial decision that you ever made?
Oh, that's a good one. Irresponsible. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a big one. I think that sometimes, so I like the first thing that comes to mind, I just posted today was like about, like my $500 flight. This was kind of like an impromptu trip that I'm planning to Florida in March, even though I already like had one planned for February, but it was to see my best girlfriend. So, if I were being truly financially responsible, maybe I would have not have bought the flight. But it really was like, just like, I got to do this. So that's like a recent one. And I can't really, I wish I had like a better example of like a bigger one, but that's what comes to mind because that's, recent.
And no, that's fine. I feel like that was really good because sometimes irresponsible financial decisions, they happen from us being like just spontaneous or being sporadic, when we really should be planning out like how we want to use our money. And I'm not saying like be so tight-fisted and be like so pen and paper, but I do think it helps when you are intentional with your money. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's like kind of goes down the path of like intentional spending and value-based spending. And sometimes that doesn't align with like some of these people that talk about frugality and like have very like strict rules all the time. And, if I had strict frugal rules, I wouldn't have bought the flight, but my spending a lot of times goes more towards value-based spending and intentional spending. And like, I made it work. So
yeah. And can you talk about that? I'm happy that you brought that up. Can you explain to my community what is value-based spending?
Yeah, value-based spending is when you kind of form your budget around what's important to you, and it doesn't always reflect kind of the traditional never buy Starbucks coffee or, don't buy a $500 flight, it can manifest in like some more like expenses or things that you buy that like maybe don't seem like a good financial decision, but like we're not here to just, live on nothing and always be, withholding things from ourselves when you can make it work and, maybe give up on something else. So like last month, I didn't eat out. I ate out like once or something, but that was because I was quarantined because of COVID. I was super busy at work. If I had eaten out, it wouldn't have like helped me because I was focusing on other things. And so, my values and what I wanted to be more intentional on were like planning for things for the future when it was going to be like a more fun period. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that so much because one thing I always preach to my community is we are not here to just work and pay bills. Period. Like it is our money. So it is our job to tell it what we want it to do. And I just don't believe in penny pinching and just operating your life from a place of deprivation, like saying, I can't have this or I can't buy this. No, spend your money on what's important to you and what you value, but also be intentional with it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Totally agree.
So now, Julia, can you tell me, like, okay, for one, y'all, she has an amazing platform on Instagram called 2 Cents with Julia. And me and her, I think we met in 2020.
Yeah, 2020. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're both kind of new to the personal finance space. So yeah.
Right. And we just clicked ever since meeting, and we had like a group chat with personal finance content creators under 25, and that was good too. But can you tell my community, how did you even start caring about finances? Like, why did money become important or something that you felt like you wanted to share with the world?
Yeah, I always think I'm very lucky around this because I became interested actually like while I was still in college. So, I had kind of a time to reflect before I was even starting to make money. And things, a lot of people start because they start with like bad habits early on, like, a lot of debt and lifestyle inflation and stuff like that. And so I kind of was just researching basic things like 401ks and, healthcare and just getting ready to have a paycheck. And then as I was researching, I was like stumbling across things that were kind of interesting to me, like, saving more than like the traditional 15%. And I was like, that makes sense because, I'm a young 20-year-old getting my first paycheck. I was just living on a college person's like amount of money. Like I was just living like, this lifestyle. So like, why do I have to change just because like I have increased income? And so as I was starting to like read more, it really resonated too with kind of my background. I had done a lot of education and internships in the investing space. So like institutional investing and investment management. And then I, for a multitude of reasons that really wasn't like the career path I wanted to go on, but I was still like kind of interested in the concept of investing. And it clicked a lot more when I was thinking about it as something that I could do as an individual. And that's kind of also how I got interested in like this idea of wealth building and how money can grow like a lot faster when you're younger. And it kind of helped that I already understood the fundamentals of investing, and I wanted to create a space where people like weren't scared to like talk about like interest rates or like different investing funds and platforms, and like could understand it a lot better. Because I think that knowledge is power in this kind of space.
Yeah, absolutely. So much I want to unpack there. So the first thing, for one, congratulations, because I got introduced into like, or started caring about money because of my irresponsible financial decisions. But you are on the other side of the spectrum where you didn't really make irresponsible financial decisions. You were just like, oh, this is interesting to me. Like, and I want to do better with my money, or I want to continue to be good with my money. The second thing that really stood out was that you said that you were living like on this college income. And because you were preparing to get an increased income, you didn't want to necessarily inflate your lifestyle. So one thing that is very, very, very important is, I think, for people to understand is, as they make more money, that doesn't mean you need to spend more money. So can you talk a little bit about lifestyle inflation and how you have avoided that, even though now you have like a 9-to-5 and you are making more money, but like your mindset around making more money, but not necessarily spending more money?
Yeah, for sure. And I was literally talking to my boyfriend about this like a few days ago, where I was saying, even though the pandemic and COVID has had like very bad effects like on my personal life and just like the world in general, like without that kind of like moment to pause and just like be not like go, I don't think that it would have ended, kind of my trajectory would have ended the way it is. So I'm in consulting, which is a pretty like hectic lifestyle sometimes. And I could have seen myself ending up like, getting Uber Eats all the time, like getting a high rise downtown so that I could like, be close to the office. Like that's what a lot of my peers in similar industries, from my college and stuff, that's the lifestyle they end up with, just because that's like the norm, right? Ubering like from the office to work to like get drinks with your coworkers, like stuff like that. And it's super easy to slip into that. And so two things have kind of helped. First was like just doing my research and like being intentional about what kind of lifestyle I wanted to build. And then also, I mean, the pandemic, I lived at home for like three months. And then when I moved, I was working remotely. So I don't have to live close to the office. Like I can live, a little bit farther and save money on rent. And, I have a roommate. So, these things kind of like followed up, and I was able to be very intentional about the lifestyle I was building. First, because I had time. I wasn't moving to Chicago right after graduation. And second, because I was doing this education and learning and stuff like that.
Yeah, you are very intentional, girl. And I love it. And I think that people listening to this, I feel like they can really maximize their income just by being intentional, by researching what type of lifestyle it is that they want to create, sacrificing on some of those things. So like, even though some people, they may have like a high-rise apartment that's closer to the office, like if you are working remote, do you really even need to be close to the office? So being that intentional with how you're spending your money, I think that can really help a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So now let's pivot into how you are leveraging your 9-to-5 to help you build wealth. So I know on your platform, you talk a lot about investing. So can you tell my community a little bit about how you are using your 9-to-5 to help you build wealth for the future?
Yeah. I really like this topic. And it's actually something that surprised me because I always had kind of an entrepreneurial edge. So I always thought that, having my 9-to-5 like would kind of not like hinder rather than help. But it's actually helped a lot. And well, first I want to touch on like the context and like the idea of like the privilege I've stepped into in order to be able to use my 9-to-5 to build wealth. I didn't start out with debt. I don't have student loans. And, I kind of came from a situation where I don't have to like support family or something like that. So I just want to give that context because I think that it's important whenever we're talking about like comparisons and stuff like that. So basically my 9-to-5 income, I set a goal early on to save or invest 60% or more of my 9-to-5 income. And so what that goes to is retirement savings. So, my 401k, my Roth IRA, and then after that, I kind of think of it as like, where is it maximized? So last year I was, putting in a brokerage. I didn't really have any other ideas of like what I wanted to do with it. And then this year I am possibly buying a rental property in the summer. So right now I'm saving up for the down payment, the closing costs and stuff like that. And so the idea of like my 9-to-5 income is that I have is like, it is my like seed money. Like there's a lot of different things I could do with it. I could invest it back into 2 cents. I could buy this rental property. I could just put it in the markets. And I'm so young that I have time to play around. But anything that I do, I kind of want the return or like the value to be for me to be higher than like the higher or equal to the returns I would get just putting in index funds. Because that's the easiest way to invest your money and sometimes the most effective. So as I'm thinking about real estate and rentals, I always compare it to kind of how my money would be used in the stock market.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And one thing that I love that you said was that you look at your 9-to-5 as seed money. And I always tell my community, like, switch the way that you think about your full-time job, because your full-time job is your first investor. Take your income and turn it into assets. And I think that you are doing that beautifully, like even with investing in your 401k, your Roth IRA, and then like thinking further with a rental property or even investing back into your platform. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope everybody listening can really think about how they can take their income and turn it into assets.
Yeah. Because if you are in a position where after your retirement investments are covered, like why not go the step further and build those like extra assets that a lot of people don't get to building, for 10 years, or some people don't ever get to build them. So, I always think I could be getting like expensive subscription boxes and living in a high rise, or I could be like building assets for the future. And I'd much rather do the latter.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to how we were talking about earlier, is just making sacrifices. Like, It's nothing wrong with getting those subscription boxes, but every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to think about that as well. And another thing that I want to touch on, because the Responsible Homegirl, all listening, you, if you're new to my community, then you probably don't know, but I don't have a full-time job. So I focus solely on building the Responsible Homegirl from the ground up. So I also want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of that, because how Julia has a 9-to-5 and she's using that income to turn into assets. I'm using like my time, my energy, my effort to build this business. And that is like my main asset that I'm growing. So with having a 9-to-5 or with being a full-time entrepreneur, all of it has advantages and disadvantages. But I would say if you're listening to this right now, you do have a 9-to-5, like think about ways to use it more than just a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So now moving right along, Julia, for everybody listening who may or may not be financially responsible, what advice would you give them to get started on their journey to making wiser financial decisions, to investing in themselves? Just any words of wisdom or advice that you have for them.
Yeah. And I'm huge on, for somebody just looking to get into personal finance and bettering their financial decision, know what's going on with your money like right now. Like I think a lot of people have a lot of like stress and anxiety because they're like, oh, I don't know, like I'm so bad with money. It's like once you sit down and you write out, okay, this is my paycheck that I get every 2 weeks. Then it goes to rent on the 1st. And then these are my bills. Track for a month or 2 months how much you're spending, like literally every single expense that you're putting towards like food and shopping and whatever. And then you have this better idea and you can understand, oh, this is why a lot, I have like $200, $300 extra dollars in my checking account every month. I've just been letting it accumulate. Now I have like $4,000. Well, switch that so that that's going towards something every month instead of just accumulating in a checking account that has no interest, right? Like put a few extra $100 towards your 401k or your Roth IRA or something. Then you can start being strategic. You can start making decisions rather than things just happening and like you don't know, and then you don't like, you're being more reactive. Like be a little bit more proactive and start being a little bit more strategic. And while you're doing that, while you're figuring out what's going on with you, keep doing the education part, right? Because you can't make decisions without knowing like what decisions are out there to make. So those are kind of like the two things. Once you get really comfortable with your financial situation and actually like know what's going on, it's going to be a lot more easy. And you'll be surprised kind of where things kind of lay out.
Yeah, both of those are really good. So just for a recap, the first one, start with where you are now. Like in order to get to where you want to be, you have to know where you're starting. And sometimes people are always spitting out like, oh, I'm so bad with money. I'm this, I'm that. But they really don't even know what's going on in their financial situation. And I promise you, if you just take some time to write out everything, you will be well on your way to making more wiser decisions, because the big statements tell it all.
Yeah.
The thing that you go ahead.
And I want to say, like, a lot of people get like caught up in the method too. Use whatever method you gravitate towards for other things. So if you like grab a piece of paper when you're trying to write out your to-do list for work, literally just start a running list of all your expenses. If you like have Excel sheets that you plan your other parts of your life, or you do that, use that for work, use an Excel tracker. And then if you like are always on your phone and like are downloading new apps all the time, get like Mint, or there's a lot of other apps that like do that kind of like tracking that you can like connect to your credit card. So don't worry about the method, just do what you like naturally like go towards, but somehow start trying to look at where your money's going.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely do what works for you and what's already like a part of your life, because that's going to help you sustain what Julia just shared with you. But the second thing that Julia shared, I think is super duper important, was educating yourself. So like we have literally so many free resources at our fingertips, and we also have paid resources at our fingertips. So if you know that you want to learn something, I feel like I have been blessed a lot in my life because I have no problem investing. And when I make that investment, I take something from it and I'm able to apply it to my business, apply it to helping somebody else, and then it always comes back. So make investing in yourself normal. Like I know at first it may seem a little weird, like, oh, I'm buying an ebook or I'm buying a course. Like if you're not used to it, it may feel foolish, but I promise you it can help you out in the long run. So thank you so much, Julia, for everything that you shared. I really appreciate it. And I know that everybody listening got some sort of value from this, and just moving forward can make better decisions because of our conversation that we had today. So just closing out, is there any last minute things that you want to share with the community, or just anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say, people like me and Keone are out there. So keep learning from us. And, we learn from you too. We don't have it all figured out. And,
not at all.
But, if you hop on Instagram, give us a follow, and, find a lot of other personal finance creators as well. And, really use this community to keep going in that educational journey.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all for listening. Please make sure you share this episode with your homegirls, with your homeboys, because we do not level up alone over here. The more you learn, the more you can share. And always remember, with exposure, execution, and consistency, there is nothing you can't do. See y'all next time.